better. Keep up the good work.
So maybe we get extra points.
You already got extra points.
Like, do we get more extra points if there's more of us?
More if you come tomorrow. Yes.
I am.
And I think this class is the class that everybody's sort of chicken out. I do not know why, because nobody volunteered to go to that dinner. Who would like to go to dinner tomorrow?
It was really good food.
If the speaker. Well, see, this two can vouch for it. Okay, he raises his hand first. You got it. Zach Walker. Yeah. You will show up, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. The dinner starts at 6. If you want to know all about it, talk to these two ladies at the other end of your table. I can tell you all about it, how good the food was.
Except for the rice.
Except for the rice. But, you know, you wouldn't get the same menu. So they serve you, so it's really nice. And this will qualify for the passport program as well.
No, it's just like really nice food.
Yeah, Zach, when everybody has signed, where's the attendance sheet? I think it's behind you, is that right there? Can you write, would you write your email address on it? It's just right behind you, so grab it before it goes further, yes.
Is the passport just like a UNCP thing, or is that like all colleges?
Yeah, it's a UNCP thing. It's a professional competency program, yeah. We would have adequate dinner that we ask students to attend, and so you learn how to use all the fork and spoon and stuff like that, and you earn the credit. And then we may have mock interviews, stuff like that, help you to write up your CV. So, because a lot of times the employers have come to us and said, your students don't know how to dress for interview. They don't know how to interview, the questions we ask them, like they're not prepared. So we want to, especially business students, so we want them to be competent when they are out there on the job market looking for a job. So I think we are emphasizing more and more on that now. We are doing chapter 6, I hope. Yep. Okay. And this week is a week that, or this weekend, ladies, you should be thinking about what project you want to do. And I think I mentioned this before, it's on the first come, first serve, right? Oops. Yeah, wrong class. Wrong class. Okay. Chapter 6 is about, what was it about? What did we talk about last time?
Wages.
Throw me keywords.
Wages.
Wages, very good. What else?
Employment.
Employment, yes. We haven't talked about unemployment, and that's something we'll talk about today. So what about like demand curve and supply curve? What does the labor demand curve look like? See if you remember. What does it shape like, the labor demand curve? I'm sorry? Red color? Did I hear red color? Oh yeah, it gotta be more than that.
What'd you say?
What does a labor demand curve shape like? Yes? Or can you describe it? Because what if I'll have to turn like this and say, okay, is this the right direction? Can you describe it? How do we describe that? Is it upward sloping? Is it downward sloping? It's downward sloping. Okay, very good. Why is that? Somebody explain. Why is that? See if you understand. Why? Because the higher the, oh yes, okay, Daniel, yes?
The higher the wages, the fewer workers employers have to hire.
Very good. Even if you look it up, that's good, because that's a very effective and powerful refreshing memory there. The higher the wages, employer are less likely to want to hire you. But the supply side is just the opposite, right? It's upward sloping, because the higher the wages, the more you're willing to work for somebody. You would raise your hand and say, here I am, hire me. What? 80,000 a year? Sure. But you gotta have enough qualification to get it. Okay, here today we're going to talk about how to measure unemployment. So we will work on a problem in the book, so you get plenty of examples. And typically in the U.S., in this country, the legal working age is 16 years old. So typically, if you're over 16 years old, and I think that's everybody in this class, I hope. Do we have anybody who is below 16 years old? Raise your hand. Nobody. That's what I thought. We used to have a genius walking around on campus. He looks like he's about 13. Yeah, I don't know if he graduated already. Yeah, he was like short, I mean, you could tell he's not even 15. I'm guessing about 13, 14. Must be a genius. Got in UNCP. I think I saw him as late as 2 years ago. May have graduated already, in 2 years, who knows. Okay, so if you're 16 years old and above, you are placed in one of the three categories. Let's see who they are. How many of you consider yourself employed? Raise your hand. Okay, that's me as well. Very good. How many of you consider yourself unemployed? Okay, we got a couple unemployed. How many of you consider yourself out of the labor force? Okay, we got one. Very good. Are you looking for a job, Adrian?
Currently.
Not really, right?
No, I mean currently.
You are looking for a job.
Yeah, later on.
No, the BLS, which is a Bureau of Labor Statistics, they want very precise answer. They say, come on, tell us your answer. BLS is from Bureau of Labor Statistics. So this is an agency in the U.S. that compute the number for unemployment. So they ask you questions like, you say, okay, Adrian, you are not currently, but in the future, how far into the future? Can you give some month? Yes.
Can you turn the board a little bit?
Oh, I see. Sure. I don't know how that happened. I think the other class, everybody be right, Yeah, by the way, we lost the other board. Did you realize that? Did you take it? I don't know what happened to the other board. Sometimes students play prank, they come in the middle of the night, they steal one board away, say, okay, now we got one last board. Tomorrow we'll have fun. Let's see how the professors react, And so I don't know what to do with that. I kind of like that one. Yeah, but anyway, that's what we have now. Can you see okay now? Okay, so what's your answer? How long? You say maybe later. So can you tell me maybe later it's like what?
In a few months.
A month, 2 months, 3 months?
3 months.
3 months?
Yeah.
Okay. If it is 3 months, you are considered out of the labor force. Okay, because currently the definition for unemployed is you do not have a job now, but you're actively or you have been actively seeking for a job in the last 4 weeks. That's a month. Yeah. So, but if you kind of like fall beyond that, then you're considered out of the labor force. So now the employed, I will count people who have part-time job. Is that right? Some of you have part-time job. Those of you who raise your hand, okay. Unemployed would be you're looking for a job, but you haven't found it yet. So you got that intention and desire. So the BLS are more precise. They would say, well, you have to be actively looking for job in the last 4 weeks. And how do they define actively looking for jobs? So it doesn't mean that you will sit at home, be a couch potato and watch TV all the time. You're not doing anything. That they count that as out of the labor force. How do they know? I don't know. But that's how they classified it. So actively seeking means you get up in the morning, you look at the classify, and you brush up your resume, and you go for an interview. You go to employment agency, you submit application, you're actively doing all these things, okay, to show evidence that, yes, you are looking for a job. So if you're just saying, yeah, I think I'm kind of looking, and you're not really looking for a while, especially for more than a month, then they don't count you unemployed and say, well, you don't have, you should fall under the out of the labor force. Okay, this is important. Please write this down. So we're getting down to, so writing this down is important because this is going to be on your test, of course, because how do you compute unemployment rate? First of all, let's define what is labor force. Now, all these definitions are very precise. You have to remember them. You have to memorize this, especially for your test, because I'm not going to give you all this. So labor force consists of two groups of people. Number one, people who have jobs, the employed. Number two, people who don't have jobs, but they are actively looking for one. Okay, so unemployment rate, RATE, will be, you will take the number of unemployed, I'm going to put it up here because we will need this later on. So this would be the number of, by the way, this is my short form, U/E for unemployment rate, would be the number of unemployed people divided by the labor force, LF. And then the second definition we have is known as participation rate. And remember, because this is in terms of rate, so we have to multiply by 100 to get the percentage. So in this case, we would look at the labor force on top as the fractions of population 16 and above. So because, those who are below 16 years old, we call them babies. Don't tell your little brother or sisters. They're not counted in the labor force because they're not of age legally to work yet. So we don't count this. Okay, so we call them kids below 16 years old. So they're out there, they're not even there. So population 16 and above. Participation rate you can break down into various categories. You could look at, if you look at a BLS number, you could look at it by age group, okay? And you know that the teenagers group, like 16 to maybe 21, mostly part-time jobs, Then you also look at other age group, you could see that the peak is probably around 30 to 40 years old, depending on the percentage of the population in that categories of age group. And you could also break it down by ethnicity, by race, or you could also break it down by gender. What is the women's labor force? Well, labor participation rate. That's what we call labor force participation rate. What is a male labor force participation rate? And then you could also go by income. If you're on upper middle income, or if you're on upper income, or you're of the lower income, there are various brackets. What is your participation rate? So unemployment, you could break it down that way to make it meaningful. So when you do your research, if you pick unemployment, if you want, a lot of students want to pick for some reason there are a lot of information available for the teenagers, the young people 16 to 21, 22 years old. For a lot of countries, actually, Australia and US, Japan, South Africa. So these are interesting countries to compare. Let's work on a little problem. If you can handle this little problem, we'll do a bigger problem. Okay, so in this problem here, basically, we give you some number and then we ask you to compute something. So in order to do that, your definition for what is unemployment, what exactly is participation rate, what exactly is labor force, it's very important. You got to have all this thing down. That's why I put the equation there, I'm not erasing it. So let's look at a 2014 example. So the number employed was unemployed 6.37 million. This is the number given. And number unemployed, we're not asking you to calculate this. This is a number that are given to you, 9.59 million. And I'm glad that the unemployed number is lower than the employed level. Well, you would expect so. And the labor force, how do we get 155.96 million?
Employed.
Okay, employed plus unemployed. Add the two together. So if you have your calculator, check the number. Okay, if you add up these two numbers, you get the last one. So this exercise is very important because very soon we're going to do a bigger one. that requires more thinking, more analytical skill. Not in the labor force, we give that to you as well. We're not asking you to compute it. We say, well, okay, we know there are some people who are not in the labor force, and that's 92.27. Now remember that those people who are not in the labor force will be people like in the military, for example, people who are retired or retirees, okay, over 65 years old, but they are above 16 years old. There are people who are disabled, cannot work, so they would be in that category. But everybody has to be above 16 years old. Okay, so we got that number. Again, that number is smaller than that. And finally, the working age population, which is the same as population 16 plus. That's the same thing as saying a working age population. So should I write this down so you know they are the same? Working age pop. Okay. Now, how do we get that working age population? Take a look at the number. Tell me. How did I get that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth one? I'm waiting. Observation. Come on.
You add in the,
Margaret, yes?
add in 92.27.
Adding which two? Which row?
155
Okay.
and 92.
And 92. Very good. Everybody got it? If you add those two together, the labor force plus not in the labor force, you get working age population. I'm going to write that down. This is important. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the working age population, you would have labor force plus not labor force. And that's how you get it. So that's the same as population 16 years old and above, working age population. So now I'm asking you now, everybody, please work on these two examples. Okay, these two it's not a big problem, so go ahead and use that equation and then I'll randomly ask one of you to give me an answer. So given all these numbers so far, what is the unemployment rate? What is the labor force participation rate? And the equation is up on the board. So all you have to do is plug it in. Remember, we're asking for rate here. So you have to, whatever you do, multiply by 100 to get that number. So Miss Oxendine, do you have it? What's your first number?
6.15.
6.15 for unemployment rate. Okay, did everybody get that number? 6.15? Okay, percent. Very good. What about the participation rate? Let's see. Do you have it, Miss Jones?
62.83.
68 point?
62.83.
62.8 something. Okay, did everybody get that number? Yes? Okay, good. So you know what to do, right? What all you have to do is, I think in the past I have students come out and fill in the blank. So basically what you have, you take the number of unemployed, which is 9.59 up here. And then the labor force will be, yeah, we already done that, 155.96. So this will be 155.96. That one will be 248. Yeah, you can roughly say that it's roughly about 50%, but not quite. And have to multiply by 100 in each case to get the percentage. Okay, I think everybody got it. So these are the kind of equation that, the definition that you need to know when you take your test, especially for the unemployment rate and participation rate. Okay, next, we have one more exercise coming up. I think we could go ahead and do it. Let me see how many slides I have. 25, 37. I think we could do it, yeah. Let's go ahead and turn to your textbook, page 123. 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna leave the equation up there. Could I get a volunteer to read? This is not on my PowerPoint slides, it's in your book. So if you don't have a book, share with somebody now. That will be very helpful. Okay. So I would like for a volunteer, it's a pretty long question, but you need to look at it while the person's reading it. Question number 5. Can I get a volunteer to read it? Anybody? Oh, come on. Let's go. Anybody? You don't want your class participation point. Okay, never mind. I'll read it. So I just, no, I'm kidding. But somebody, anybody? Okay, go ahead, James. Thank you. That's not a big deal. Just read it. And you got your point. Okay, go ahead, James.
The following is a report from
Yes.
a not very efficient BLS survey taker. There were 65 people in the houses I visited, 10 of them children under 16, 25 people had full-time jobs, and 5 had part-time jobs. There were 10 retirees, 5 full-time homemakers, 5 full-time students over age 16, and 2 people who were disabled and couldn't work. The remaining people did not have jobs, but all said they would like one. One of these people had not looked actively for work for 3 months. However, find the labor force, the working age population, the number of employed workers, and the number of unemployed workers.
Okay, very good. Guess what? You will see a similar question on your test. So I'm giving you this exercise now. So be sure you write down everything. So let's work on this together, okay? So what I'm doing is when you see a question like that, do not panic. Say you can do it. So after you say you can do it, what you do is you list everything down clearly. So I'm gonna ask you for help here. Okay, help me out here. So from what James had just read, right? So we're gonna list them all. And so we're gonna do this divide and conquer thing, and then we're gonna solve the problem together. So help me out here. Kids less than 16 years old, how many?
10.
Very good. Retirees?
10.
How many?
10.
Very good. Full-time workers?
5. Oh, wait, no.
25.
Very good, thank you. Look at your textbook. So part-time workers?
5.
5.
Very good. Full-time homemakers?
5.
This is not workers, homemakers. Homemakers means like a housewife. Do we count a housewife? We don't. So the homemakers. So write this down. 5. So I'm giving you the techniques how to do it, how to analyze it slowly. Full-time students 16 plus. How many?
5.
Okay. Disabled people?
2.
2. Very good. Let's add that up. Tell me what's that number. Go ahead and add it up. Could do it in your head, right?
62.
How many?
62.
62.
2.
Did everybody get 62?
Yes.
Okay. Let's read that last line, second last sentence here. Go back there. So this is when they give you all this number analysis, you write down the number, you add it up, it's 62. And then listen to this line here. See, the remaining people did not have jobs, but all say they were like one. So how many are those remaining people? 3 is correct, because when he walk in, he see how many people? 65. 65 minus 63, it's 3 remaining people. But let's go ahead and redefine these 3 remaining people and identify who are they. They say, oh, one of these people had not looked actively for work for 3 months. That's you, Adrian. So what about the other 2? What do we call them? So we all know that there are 3 more, right? The 3 remaining. The one, okay. 65 minus 62, we know that's, we get 3. So out of these 3 people, there are 1 person who's like Adrian. We call it not in the labor force, not LF. Because I gave up some time ago. Okay, what about the other 2? They are actively looking for job. Unemployed, very good. We got 2 unemployed. Everybody with me? We got 1 not in the labor force. Okay? So let's break down these people here. Give them all a name. Let's call them by names. Do we count kids less than 16 years old anyway? No? Very good. Let's draw a line here and say, out, you're out. Okay, the retirees, 10 of them, they are not LF. They're not in the labor force. What about 25 and 5? Are they in the labor force? Definitely, absolutely. They're in the labor force because these are the people who got jobs, right? Full-time workers, part-time workers. How about full-time homemakers? Nope. Not LF. Very good. We gave them a name. Full-time students 16 years old and above. They are not in the labor force, as you know. That's you, Adrian, again. You have been identified a few times, so you're right there. What about the disabled? Are they in the labor force? Nope, they're not. LF. Okay, very good. Now your job is easy. Yeah. So number 1, let's compute. See, it gets easier and easier. So number 1, let's compute the employed people. How many are they? Number employed.
30.
Very good. 30. How do you get 30? 25 plus 5. So we got 30. Okay, write this down. We have just done one computation, the easiest one. The second one, which we had already found out, the number of unemployed, how many? I'm waiting. There are only 2. The 2 that are not counted at the beginning out of the 3. Remember that? So there's 2 right here. Let's put a sad face here so you know. Okay, I could put 2 sad faces if that helped. Okay, we got that. Number 3, hey, got easier and easier now. What is a labor force? We know that labor force is 1 plus 2, right? The number of employed plus the number of unemployed. Where was that? Yeah, well, in the earlier. So what's this number here? 32. Oh, okay, if you want, you could put 1 plus 2. Very good. You already know you could do the unemployment rate already. So go ahead, calculate that unemployment rate. Well, we could do a little bit more, but let's go ahead and do unemployment rate right away. That would be the number of unemployed divided by labor force. That would be, I want you to give me the number. Those of you who are calculating.
6.25.
6.25%. Everybody got it? What's that number up there? Somebody tell me. Nick, you got that number? Number of unemployed? 2, yes. What's the denominator? You need glasses, I think. Or you can move forward a little bit, it doesn't bother me, but I think maybe you do. Multiply by 100, so you should get, how much? 6.25%. Everybody got that? Okay. Okay, so we got that. Whoa, very nice. Okay, let's do one more step. So have we calculated, oh yeah, we calculated labor force. Let's do the other one. Not in the labor force. Okay, let's go back here and circle all the ones that are not in the labor force. That. Hey, add them up. 20, 22. Everybody happy with that? Okay, so we got 22 there. Hope that's correct. Let me check just to make sure. Yep. Oh wait.
It's 20.
Oh, we forgot somebody.
Oh, we did, yeah.
22 plus Adrian, which is 1. So where is the one so-called Adrian? Right here. Okay, I'm gonna write Adrian's names here. Is that okay? So that will help us remember. Okay, so we must not forget that guy down there. Everybody with me? Okay, so it's 23. Wow, it's getting easier and easier. This is very promising. Okay. Aha! We know that, don't we? Yes. So let's do 6. The working age population, oh yes, we know that. That would be labor force. What is it? 32 plus not in the labor force, 23. So we have 55. And there's one quick way to do it, alternative way to do it. Remember the whole total amount is
65.
65 minus this kids.
10.
65 minus 10 is 55. Yay. We got our alternative answer. Don't forget these kids here. These are the babies. Okay, minus 10 babies, you got 55. So whichever way you do it, you get the same answer. The last calculation, ta-da, everybody could do it, is me, right here. The labor force participation rate. See how easy it is. We already know how to do that. That would be, what's labor force up there?
32. 32.
Labor force is 32 on top, and then at the bottom is, this is working age population. That would be
55.
55, very good. Remember to multiply by 100, what's the number?
58%.
Sorry,
58%.
what did y'all get?
58.1.
58%. Did you get it? Did you get 58? No? Do you have questions? Do you understand how we got it? This is going to be on the test. So I don't want you to roll the dice, okay? So this is, the test is going to be easier than this, but same techniques. They will not ask you a whole bunch of this, but then this is like, okay, if you know, this is a comprehensive set. The test probably will ask you either 7 or 4. One of the 2 rates, I forgot which one. If we ask you that one, that's a lot of work. If we ask you this one, this is easy, because remember we got the answer sooner. Then the other 2, we have to work on it a little bit further. Okay, so that's the answer there. So I'm giving you all the calculation. I think that's it, yeah. We got everything. So typically, the most important thing is to calculate this unemployment rate, which is number 4, and then the last one, a labor force participation rate. And of course, in order to calculate all that, you need labor force. You need labor force and not labor force, not in the labor force, which is your working age population, because you got it from here. In fact, I didn't find out about this until about 2 years ago. I've been teaching this for years, you know. And suddenly one day I was talking in the class, saying, oh, Yeah, so we got a quick way to solve this problem. So the light hit, suddenly like, oh, okay, this is getting easier. Okay, so I hope you copy that down because there will be a question like that on the test. Don't skip that question. I think you could do it. It's worth it. It's not going to be that long, but you're using the same techniques. Okay, look at this. What is this?
Employment rate.
Unemployment rate historically. What do you notice? Do you see a negative sign? No. They are all above zero. This is not inflation. Inflation, you see negative inflation, which we call deflation, but this is all above zero. Okay, so unemployment rate usually is above zero, and you could see that, again, you see that twin towers. We never escape these two twin towers. Well, there are more, but especially these two right here, during the two oil shocks here that we talk about, early 70s and late 70s. The reason that unemployment rate was so high during these 2 years is because this were the 2 years where the country was experiencing a very bad recession, okay, because high inflation rate and also high unemployment rate. So these are the 2 years. These are the years that we do not want to use them as base years. Remember, base years, you want to stay away from all those economic disturbances. Look at this. This is your U.S. Participation rate. It's roughly about 60%. A while ago, we calculated, was it about 58%? Okay, so roughly around there. And that more or less stay constant. A few percentage higher, lower over time. So that will give you some idea. So next, I want to focus on what types of unemployment. And this is important. Because on your test, we will test you on 3 different types of unemployment, what are the causes, what are some of the reasons behind unemployment. Okay, so there are various causes of unemployment. One is economic cause. Where does that come from? What do you think? Where does the economic cause of unemployment come from? When people don't have jobs, they are trying to get a job to survive. Like to feed the families, for example. What happened? Can you get help from Uncle Sam? Absolutely. In this country, yes, there's such a thing called unemployment compensation. Is it free? Who pays for this unemployment compensation? Tell me. Huh? The taxpayers, yes. People like you and me who got job and who work and pay our taxes to North Carolina government or the U.S. IRS. So when they collect these taxes, right, they dish it out in the form of transfer payment, Medicare, Social Security, unemployment compensation, and maybe even scholarship to help students. And again, transfer payment means the amount that you receive from the government simply because you're eligible, without the government expecting you to pay anything back. So, because of unemployment, economic here meaning so it would cost taxpayers money, basically. So that's the economic cost of it. The government have to dish out. Well, it's just like welfare, food stamps. All these the programs that they have, utility stamps and housing stamps. This is a welfare program. And where does the money come from? The taxpayers' money. You see the highway, the government building, public good, hospital, government hospital, high school. We call it public high school because government sponsored. It's a public good. Hospital, same thing. Highway, same thing. Prison. You heard about state prison? Yes. Tax money sponsor it, help build it. Okay, so psychological cost of unemployment. So typically, if somebody's unemployed for a long period of time, you don't feel good about yourself. Or after a while, you say, oh man, I'm giving up, I keep trying and maybe you're too picky, some people might say, start with something low. So after a while, you might feel like you have very low self-esteem. So that's where the psychological part comes from. And that's not good because then it will result in some other social problem. What are some of them? Drug abuse, alcohol abuse, domestic violence. So all sorts of social problems could happen as a result of this big thing called unemployment. So what about the duration of unemployment? How long do you stay unemployed? And we have terms for it because BLS love it. They say, oh yeah, these people, let's call it this name and that name. We got various periods. The impact of unemployment is affected by how long individuals have been unemployed. For example, we have something called unemployment spell. Let's look this up. Could I get a volunteer to look this up and read what is unemployment spell from your group? Yes, and this is Kiana. Go ahead.
You said look it up.
Yeah, it's on page 115 on the site. I usually ask students to read what's on the site here.
Unemployment spell a period during which an individual is continuously unemployed.
Okay. So that's just like a spell being cast on you. You know, you're continuously unemployed. It could be you get a job for a day or two, and then you lose it, and then you're unemployed again. The duration of unemployment, everybody know what that means. Like how long have you been unemployed? Long-term unemployment is usually referring to at least 6 months of being unemployed, and you have to be looking for it. And then beyond that, there's such a thing called chronically unemployed. Sounds like a disease, you know, like a chronic disease if you're unemployed for such a long time. There are two groups of people that sometimes the BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, forgot. They don't count them. And that's a mistake. The reason we say it is a mistake is because if you count those people, unemployment rate is actually much higher. For example, we have a first group called discouraged workers. And then the second group is called involuntary part-time workers. Discouraged workers are defined as people who would like to work but have not been looking in the last 4 weeks. So they might say, I like to work. The intention is there, but you're not getting up from your bed. You're not getting up from your couch. You're not doing anything actively to show that you are actively seeking. So we call these people discouraged workers. And unfortunately, they counted as part of the labor force rather than unemployed. And you see the problem is, oh, I erased it already. So if you go back to the unemployment rate, right, remember, the calculation is the number of unemployed on top, and then you have labor force, which is the employed and the unemployed, right? Last number of employed. So what happened is, if you're counted as part of the labor force, it goes to the denominator. So if denominator get bigger and bigger, this number gets small. But if you count those people called discouraged workers as under unemployed, the number of unemployed, this number will go up because it's in the numerator. So in other words, your unemployment rate would tend to be high if you include these people as unemployed rather than in the labor force. Okay, so the next group of people are people like most of you, yes?
So you're saying the discouraged workers, they're not counted as a part of the labor force?
Yeah, right now they're not as counted because of the BLS definition that unemployed means you have to be actively looking for work in the last 4 weeks. But these people are the ones who like to work, but they have not been looking. So there's this another group of people that economies over time have forgot to take into consideration. But if you have taken this group into consideration, unemployment rate will be higher. Okay, the second group is a while ago at the beginning of this class, most of you raise your hand and say, well, you are employed. But really, you are working you're taking part-time job. Now, some of you, I'm not saying everybody, but really you want to get a full-time job, but you can't. You know, so part-time job is the best you could do because you, I guess, take classes, all that. So this is the best you could do, but you, in other words, you go out looking for a full-time job to start off with, but you ended up getting a part-time job, which is the second best, but you take it anyway. So we call it involuntary part-time workers. You take your part-time job because you don't have a choice. If you have a choice, you would rather work full-time, is what it is. So now the last point is the most important point that we're trying to explain all that, is if you include these two groups of people into the calculation of unemployment rate in 2005 is an example, and that unemployment rate figures was actually 9% instead of 5.2. So what a big jump, almost double. So in other words, these two groups of people are quite significant, but right now we're not taking them into consideration. So this is some of the critique of, yes.
But isn't the part-time workers technically still in the labor force?
Yeah, they are in the labor force, but then what I'm saying here is they are in the labor force, but they're not, they counted as unemployed right now, the involuntary people.
Even though they're part-time?
Yes, yeah. So if you count them, the involuntary one, there are people who want, the part-time one we count you, but if there are people who want to work full-time, they couldn't get a full-time, ended up getting a part-time job. We call it involuntary, because that's not what you decide. It's just like, you don't have a choice, that's what I get. This is second best, I'll take whatever I could take, even though it's part-time job. So right now, we're not taking this group of people into consideration. But had we taken this group of people into consideration, unemployment rate would be higher. This is all I can say. Thank you for asking that question. Okay, now we have three types of unemployment. The first one is frictional unemployment. This is important because we ask you this kind of question left and right on your test. You have to know the examples as well. So the first type is known as frictional unemployment. Okay. And in the case of frictional unemployment, I'm going to draw a smiling face because this is actually a good kind of unemployment. It is usually short term, and what does that mean? This means you are in the process of matching jobs. So usually, example would be like if you graduate from UNCG, you cannot find a job right away, a good job that fit your degree. You might work as a janitor, and you don't like it. But you say, well, that's okay, at least I get something. Between job, as soon as I find a better job that fit my degree, then I'll take it. So in between jobs, you would have something called frictional unemployment. Okay, and this is a good kind of unemployment because that means you're upgrading to a better job. Okay, you are better matched. You're going to be upgraded. Over time, over a period of time, you will get better and better job. Yeah. So this is short term. It may lead to better match between the worker and the job. It is necessary in a dynamic economy because you don't want to sit around idle. Even though you don't get your ideal job, go ahead and get whatever you could for now. So, and of course, if that job falls, the first one, which is not so desirable, and after a while it ends, and before you get your better job, there is this period of time of short terms of unemployment. We call it frictional unemployment. This is actually good for the economy. We say in a dynamic economy, that should be happening all the time. You upgrade your skill. Now you got computing skill, and now you can type 85 words per minute. I guess that's considered fast. And so you're constantly upgrading yourself, so you are looking for a better and better job. So that's good for the economy. If everybody think that way, if everybody do it that way. Okay, so the next kind of unemployment is known as structural unemployment. In the case of structural unemployment, we say this is correctable. You can correct this kind of unemployment with training. For example, this particular kind of unemployment has got something to do with, let's see. Okay, it is normal. Yeah, lack of skills, language barrier, discrimination. Okay. So, for example, older people who are over 65, although a lot of them are very tech savvy, but typically if you ask someone who is 80 years old and above, chances are they have not used a computer and they don't intend to. So if you teach them how to use a computer, first you have to start off with, this is the mouse, this is a keyboard, this is how you hit and so, they may not want to be retrained, but then if they're getting a job, older people don't like to sit around. Even in their 70s, 60s, definitely no, because 60s is still considered young. So, you can correct it with training. If you give them computer training, computer classes, then they overcome that, right? They have the skills, so then they're upgraded. So then you could solve the structural kind of unemployment. So usually it's some sort of technological change, computer comes of age and then suddenly this group of older generations, feel like they're left out because they don't know how to use iPhone or smartphone. So things like that. Language barrier, okay, so I could talk about it a little bit. That would be like Hispanic people coming from Mexico trying to look for a job, and you won't get a job because you're not, because you don't have a good command of English language, so people may not want to hire you. So all that you could get is like blue-collar job. So again, if you take language classes or over time you master, you have better grasp of the language, you could read and write and carry on a normal conversation, then then we solve that unemployment problem. So it's got something to do with structure of the economy. Now, if you read the book, there was one example given, like, I forgot what year, it was somewhere around the turn of the century, maybe in the 20s or 30s. There was a slum in the industry of, I think, steel industry, steel or iron, I forgot which one. So as a result of that, a whole bunch of steel workers got laid off. So now when that happened, it was just temporary for a period of time, and later on, maybe like months later, could be like a year later, so the industry picked up and those people got jobs again. So, and that's called structural unemployment. It's got something to do with structure of the economy. Okay. So this usually is long-term, but the good news is it can be corrected. Okay, the last kind of unemployment, back up a little bit. So the cause of this kind of structural unemployment is, you would have loss in economic output because we couldn't use these older people, we couldn't use people who do not have the language skills. We cannot use these people, the steel workers, when the economy is in a slum, especially in that particular industry. And like I say, they may not develop new skills or unwilling and say, never mind, it's too late for me. But I could invest in you, you're my extension. Okay, so psychological cause, that's part of it. So next I want to focus on the last type of unemployment, which is known as cyclical unemployment. I pronounce it as cyclical. Some students like to pronounce it as cyclical. You could do it either way. And this is bad news, very bad news. Very bad. The reason that it is so bad is because this relates to recession. If there's a time that you need to wake up the President of the United States, Obama, at 2 a.m. in the morning, give him a heart attack and tell him the state of the economy, it is this kind of unemployment. Go ahead and call him up 2 a.m. He will appreciate it. Cyclical unemployment is gone by 5%. Whoa! He woke up right away and say, let's get to work. How do we solve this problem? But if you call him up and say, by the way, frictional unemployment is 5%. You say, never mind, I'm gonna go back to sleep. As for you, go back and take your ECN 2030. Study. So you know the difference between the two types of unemployment. In other words, this is okay. This is good. This is unavoidable, bad correctable. This one is bad news. Cyclical unemployment is serious. That's why we study macroeconomics today, because we got that cyclical unemployment. That's related to recession. Next, we want to talk about this minimum wages thing very quickly. It relates to unemployment. And I think you remember in chapter 3 we talked about that when we talked about price floor and price ceiling. How many of you remember that? Okay. Now, when we talk about minimum wages, if you really remember, let me quiz you. Are we talking about price floor? Are we talking about price ceiling? Which one? When we refer to minimum wages. Was it price floor or price ceiling? It is price floor because it's because we're looking at a minimum. Minimum means you impose it above the equilibrium price. Okay, so here's a case. Remember my McDonald's example. If the wages is say $6 per hour, you're up here. So you hire 500 workers. Now, we know that the minimum wages in North Carolina is high, $7.25, above $6, assuming that the market price wages is $6. So if you update, draw a line across A and B, that distance of AB represent the surplus labor. Remember we talked about how you're out of the equilibrium if you're above or below that equilibrium point. And if you're above, means this is a floor, meaning that this is a minimum. Remember we talked about how if McDonald's want to hire you at $10 per hour, $12 per hour, they can. They could go up as high as they want, but they just cannot drop below that $7.25. So therefore, it is a floor. Stay at the floor. That's it, minimum. Unless you poke through, but then you violate the law. If you hire someone at $5 per hour, come on. You're violating the law. Okay, so you get the point. So there it is. So AB is unemployment rate as a result of imposing that so-called minimum wages. And I'm sure at this point everybody's asking, and I think I highlighted that question before and I answered it before too. And students will ask, okay, so then what is the point of having the minimum wages if it produces some sort of inefficiency, such as surplus labor, otherwise known as unemployed workers? Now, remember I mentioned that the government intervention has its good and bad effects. So there will be a group of people who are helped. And these are the people right here, NA. These are the people who get $7.25. Yeah. But there's also a group of people who got hurt or harmed. And these are the group of people between here and here. Say this is 500, that's 300, so the difference here is 200. So 200 people got hurt. How? They didn't get the job because before they were hired at market rate of $6 per hour. Now, when the minimum wage is being raised, only a smaller group of people got help, 300 of them. The other 200 got displaced. So there's people who get hurt, people who get help. So then what is the good thing about policy? And that always happens. So what the government tried to do is try to help a bigger group of people, but hurt as little as possible, the number of people. And it's always a trade-off. It's very difficult to be a policy maker. Someday if you get your economics degree, go out there, you start making policy, you will feel that. And you feel like you're helping people, on the one hand, and then on the other hand, there are people lobbying and say, oh, we got hurt. So then you have to kind of like balance it all. Hopefully that you help more than what you, because the best thing is don't do it, right? But if you don't do it, then you don't solve the problem. Nobody get that minimum wages, so you always stay at $6 per hour. Is that better for everybody? No. So what you wish to happen is that you're among those people who got help. Okay, so that's unemployment as a result of minimum wages. Okay, so there it is. We already talked about it. It creates some sort of economic inefficiency. Some people got help, other people got hurt. Next, we also want to talk about, introduce something this is the same thing, labor unions. Now, labor unions have the same kind of effects as the minimum wages. Because, if you belong to a union, your membership of a union, why would people want to join a union? Tell me. Well, what are some of the benefits? What's the number one benefit?
You don't get fired,
Well, you may be protected, yeah. You're less chances of you being fired. But most important of all, labor union fight for your higher wages. You pay for your membership dues, you go to their meeting. And so here it is. The benefits of joining a union is, reduce worker exploitation. Less chance of you being fired because your union will fight for you as a group. Support progressive labor legislation. Okay, that's kind of like straightforward. Increase productivity because they try to fight for higher wages for you, so boost the morale, the working morale. And to some extent that eventually would, we hope, increase productivity among the workers. Promote some sort of democracy in the workplace. Okay, we could see that. What are some of the costs, pros and cons? Unions cause otherwise competitive labor market to function inefficiently. So there's the same explanation or argument we just got done arguing about the minimum wages. Because, anytime you're away from that equilibrium wages or employment level, you are in the case of surplus or shortages. So you have surplus labor in this case, what we call inefficiency, anytime you're out of that equilibrium. So unions may prevent companies from competing in the global economy. Yes, because so what happened here is they might fight, for example, NAFTA. Did I talk about NAFTA in this class already? I think I did. North American Free Trade Agreement in the early 90s signed between President Clinton and Mexican president and Canadian prime minister at that time. So basically it means free trade among the three countries. And it was somewhat, had some sort of a negative sentiment. I think especially among the American workers who are trying to prevent jobs coming in from Mexico. Because, for example, the textile industry. So if you want to let the Mexican company do the Levi jeans, for example, then workers in the U.S. will not, in other words, they go for the cheap labor, right? The cheaper labor is in the South. So if you let the job go to the South, then your domestic industry, the domestic economy suffer. So unless you practice something called I think I talked about that, protectionism. This means protect the domestic industry. But if you do that, you're not for NAFTA. So that's the problem. So in other words, NAFTA could be pretty controversial in that sense. So, okay, so the cost is a union may prevent company from competing in the global economy because, if you want to keep fighting for protect your workers here to continue to have high wages, then you don't do trade in Mexico, period. Then people have to pay higher if the Levi jeans are made in USA. Costs are higher compared to if they come from China, Costa Rica, or whatever. So go on, look at your pair of jeans, see where it is made. If it is made in USA, it costs more, a lot more. Unemployment insurance, we talked about it a little bit. What is unemployment insurance? It helps to reduce the cost of unemployment. The textbook seems to use it as equivalent to your unemployment compensation. You may give the unemployed an incentive to search longer and less intensely. Let's stay home and be couch potato. Watch more TV, sleep more hours. Forget it because I'm receiving the handout from the government. Thank you, Uncle Sam. Hey, don't say that because the minute you think that way, you're hurting other people. Because we are the taxpayers, we support you. We want you to get up and go look for a job. It's only to a certain extent we could support you. So that's it. As a policy maker, you have to use this cost-benefit principle to balance it out. Unemployment benefit must balance the benefit of providing support to the worker. Yes, help them out. They really need help. Real need. Versus the cost of reducing the incentive to work. If you give them too much, then they lose the incentive to want to look for a job. So there is this balancing act there. So we call cost-benefit principle. Where is that threshold in which after you cross over there, you're helping them too much? So much so that you don't have the incentive to get up to work, to look for a job. Okay, the other government regulation you can read, OSHA. It's health and safety regulation. For example, a lot of workplace requires a whole bunch of rules. Like if you work in the office depot, they have strict rules about how you use a ladder to climb up to get your things. You have to follow certain measurement and all that. So all this regulation have good intention to try to protect the safety of the workers who work in the premises, but it costs employer money to try to conform all because of the regulation that they have to comply with. So increase the employer's cost. To some extent, you spend so much time reading this manual and trying to conform, following this regulation, it reduces productivity to some extent. So the reduction in the demand will increase unemployment because of all those rules that the government imposed, whether it's health or in terms of safety rules in the workplace, may discourage the employer, your boss, from wanting to hire more people. Now, if that's the case, your demand for labor would shift to the, I'm trying to remember your homework question. I think you need to do demand and supply curve in your exam, in your homework exercise. So if that's the case, right, your boss or your employers are less willing to hire you. So then you move from point A to point B. Your labor demand will shift to the left. So therefore your wages come down. And your boss will be less willing to hire you. Increase the unemployment. So therefore, going back to that cost-benefit criterion, we should use that to try to decide whether it is feasible to propose certain legislation to help people, whether it's in terms of health or in terms of safety. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming. Don't forget that tomorrow we have this 3:40 and more. And if you write a summary, I need to have it by the end of the session, half of it. Oh, I'm gonna give it back to you. Almost forgot. Anna, DJ. Kayla? No, this is Toby. Toby, I got yours right here. Adrian? James? Andre? Nick? Jonathan? And Miss Jones? Andre, here's yours. Okay.
Did you see Aaliyah's post?
That's yours, Jonathan. And we have a, what is it?
I just have a question.
Okay, I'm sorry, I think she has a question first. Let me answer the question. Adrian.
You can go ahead because it's about what we learned today.
Okay, yes.
Tutoring is today, right? Tuesday
Yes,
to
we have a
Thursday,
tutoring today from 4 to 6.
4 to 6.
Today's Tuesday, right?
1:13, right?
4, yes.
Okay, alright.
Might have to.
That is correct, 4 to 6,
So my
yes.
question is, there was a section about how some people go on notice if they don't look for a job for 4 weeks. How do they know that? Do you have to fill out a form when you look for a job or something?
Yeah, it's some kind of survey that they ask people, so,
And that's how they keep up with what you're doing.
yeah. They may get the data from the unemployment, like the employment agency. So that's one way to do it. So usually there's a poll out there. I think the employment agency would be great to do it, or do it from household to household, or they look at the industry, like how many jobs they hire, big industry, like see if there's any turnover rate. So they usually do that, I think, by doing a poll, a big company,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
I should stop and get something to eat.
Yes.
Do I just need to get up with you after the event tomorrow? Or where do I need to be at? So-
Well, go to that session, so because, we need to hear what he has to say
Yeah, I'm
and
gonna
then,
go.
and do the summary, and then it will end at 5. When it ends at 5, there's a reception. Reception is just right outside in the, the mall hall. Reception is just finger food, nothing to it. And if you want to leave, then you can, but then come back to the cafeteria. The cafeteria, there's a special room in the middle section, where they have the round table, and that's where we'll be at, 6 o'clock.
Where's the cafeteria? Because I'm a commuter, I don't know much about
Oh, I see. The cafeteria is in the university center,
Okay, in the university center.
student center, yeah.
Okay, is
Our
that,
student way is a cafeteria. Everybody could tell you where. I could show you on my way out if you give me a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. So you walk into the student center, and student center is so small. If you see a long line of students lining up,
well, I know
there's a
where
cashier.
the cafeteria is. It's like right over there, right?
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah, I've walked in that direction because we're inside the room now. Yeah, you know that where students, if they have the meal plan, that's where they go to eat.
Yeah.
Right.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so when you get there, right, you look for, there's usually a special room, so don't pay for anything. You tell them you are having dinner with the professor. So there's this special room in the middle. You have to look for it, where there's only a few tables, round table, and that's where it is at.
Okay.
So your name will be there because we make name tag.
Right.
Put it on the table, so,
Okay. Well, I'll just ask if I have any trouble.
yeah. But that is if you want to skip the